Hey everyone, how's it going today? And welcome back to another third stimulus check unemployment benefits extension update. So we have really great news to share, and it is that the official text, which is the highly anticipated thing that I think a lot of us have been waiting for, has officially been released by the Ways and Means Committee. If you're not familiar with that committee, basically, and I talked a little bit about in the last couple of videos, feel free to check that out. I think it's the one that's called House Approved because it talks about it. Basically, there's a committee inside of the House. They decided to kind of break up the package into different parts, but they have officially approved the stimulus checks. The really great news is that it was just in and just released that we now officially have the text that has been released by that committee about the third stimulus check. Now in today's update, I really want to just focus on and speak specifically about the qualifications about the third stimulus check to really make sure that every single person, well, knows whether or not they actually physically qualify for the third stimulus check, because it actually goes a lot more in depth than just the you have to be making $75,000 or under. Obviously, that's the surface answer about, the income requirements, but it actually goes a lot more in depth to that, especially even more true if you happen to have a family, kids, if you file as jointly, if you have a special circumstance. So for example, like adult dependents, social security, any of those kind of particular cases, it goes a lot more in depth. So today's video is really just going to be focusing on the qualifications about who actually physically qualifies for the stimulus check. We will also actually run through the actual specific text so we can kind of read it together to kind of run through it. So we're going to start right away, but before we begin, make sure you smash the like button, especially in light of a lot of the great news that has recently been coming out. Consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification button for future updates on stimulus, unemployment, and other finance investing based topics. Feel free to comment any questions, thoughts about honestly just really anything at all. It's always great to hear from familiar and also new faces. Consider subscribing if you guys are brand new, and also check out other videos if you guys are interested where we talked a lot more about things such as like the unemployment, things such as how to call, whether or not to refile, troubleshooting, the 300 if you're still waiting, all sorts of different topics we haven't covered. So with that being said, let's get this video started. So the really great news to share, as just mentioned, is that they have officially released the text. I'll actually just throw it up right here, and I'll probably also maybe just put a link into it in the description as well, so you guys can also read it for yourself if you guys are interested. And I'll also talk a lot more about it if it happens to be hard to see. Say for example you're watching this on a very small like smartphone screen. So this is the official text. So the really great news is that there's actually even more people that actually will be qualifying for this stimulus check than the first and the second stimulus check. So if you happen to be a single filer, the income requirement is still going to be $75,000, and it's going to taper up all the way until $100,000. So the idea is that if you make $75,000 or under, you would get the entire $1,400 check. If you guys make above that, you would slowly taper off whatever $25,000 is, divide by 1,400, because that happens to be well, the amount above that. If you happen to be a head of household, that same number now just gets raised, so now instead it's $112,500, or capped at $150,000. Or if you happen to be a family or joint filer, so you're like a married couple of some kind, your stimulus check would start to taper off at $150,000, capped at $200,000. So the idea is that you would lose a certain amount until finally, if you hit $100,000 for single filers, $150,000 for head of households, or $200,000. Now the income requirements for the child tax credit is going to be exactly the same. It's also going to be under $75,000 as a cap for single filers, $112,500 for head of households, and $150,000 for family or joint filers. Now this one they did specifically give an exact amount, so one great news is that it's a lot more clear. I believe it's that it's going to start tapering at about $50 for every $1,000 above that threshold. So the idea is that, say for example you happen to be a single filer and you happen to have a child, if you're making, say, $85,000, that is $10,000 above $75,000. So 10,000, so 10 times 50 would be $500. So afterwards, you would only take home $2,500 for children over 5, or $3,100 for children 5 and under, because the full amount would be $3,000 for kids over 5 or between 5 to 17, or $3,600 if you are 5 or under. I talk a lot more about the child tax credit in another video. I believe it's the video that's literally called plus extra 3,600, because it talks a lot more about the child care. So if you guys are interested, feel free to check that out. Now on to some really great news to share is that I know a lot of people were wondering about it, and it is the great news to share is that this stimulus check will indeed apply for adult dependents, because I know there were a lot of people that felt really left out about the first two stimulus checks. Like, for example, if you were a college student, or if you were like an adult dependent, say you were still living at home. The great news is that this stimulus check will apply even to adult dependents, including college students or anyone that's basically over 17, as long as you are dependent. Now, one thing to note though is that if you are an adult dependent, it's probably going to be deposited into the bank account of the person who claims you as dependent. So for example, in this case, most likely it's probably going to be your parents, your guardian, or whoever is your caretaker. It's probably going to go into their bank account. But the great news is at least your mom, dad, family will at least be able to receive something. So that's the really great news compared to the last two stimulus checks. I do believe another great news is that it's also going to apply for anyone that's on SSI, SSDI. So basically all Social Security people should also be able to get this. So this is the really great news. The only really important thing to notice is that if you did not file a tax report, or if you're considered a non-filer, make sure you go to the IRS's website and look up, and you can probably Google it. Literally just, I think if you literally just Google non-filers IRS, you should be able to give them your information so that they can make sure they have it on file, so that they can hopefully, well, send it to you as soon as they hopefully approve it and as fast as possible. Now, maybe one lesser good news to share is that supposedly this stimulus check will be garnished though. So what that means is basically is that if you happen to have any kind of debt, say for example you owe child support or you have to pay off some bill of some kind, they are going to garnish it. So that is one huge difference, because the first two stimulus checks, I believe, you would be able to receive it regardless of how much debt. You could have probably owed the IRS like, I don't know, you could have been committing something that owed the IRS like over $100,000. You would have still gotten your first two stimulus checks, with the assumption your income was still, you know, under the $75,000 threshold. Because if you owed over $100,000 in IRS debt, then you probably had some kind of income that was more than $75,000 at some point in time. Now, this one's a lot more of an interesting one, but if by any chance you happen to be in jail, or you probably are not necessarily watching this in jail, but by any chance, if you either happen to be in jail, or you happen to like know someone that is in jail, or maybe you just got out of jail. So say for example you're an inmate of some kind, and you just got out and you're finally looking to like start fresh again in life. Maybe one much more better positive news is that actually, interestingly, even inmates would be able to qualify for this third stimulus check. I do believe though is that if the IRS doesn't have your information, you're probably going to either, as kind of just mentioned, either complete the non-filers form, or just simply write it off on your next tax report when you file taxes. So if you happen to either know someone in jail, or you recently just got out of jail, then the really great news is maybe this could help out. And I mean, it actually is a very legit thing, because it's a very well-known thing that, especially when you put a lot of people into very difficult moments, especially times like last year, I think just by the nature of it, crime rates are going to go up. And I think that's just really the nature of it, because when you put people onto the very edge, it comes to a point that when you don't have as much to lose, naturally people will start to go to extreme lengths just out of survival. So the really great news is that overall is that it will be applying to a lot more people compared to the first two stimulus checks. One of the biggest, most notable differences is that because this stimulus check happens to be larger at $1,400 instead of $600, not sure if anyone noticed, but the cutoff has been raised. So that is one really great news, because the first stimulus check, I believe, it cut it off at $87,000 $87,500. So the idea is that if you're a single filer and you made over $87,500, or if you made over $125,000 as a joint filer, you basically didn't get the stimulus check at all. The great news is that they did officially raise it. So now instead of $87,500, it's now raised to $100,000, and instead of $125,000, it's now raised to $150,000 for single filers and joint filers, respectively. But aside from that, that's what I really just wanted to share in today's update. Hopefully you guys found some insight. I know especially if you are an adult dependent, if you are an SSI, Social Security, a non-filer, anything like that. Remember to smash the like button if you guys hopefully found something insightful about that. Consider subscribing, hitting the bell notification button for future updates. We will be talking about the other parts, especially now that more information such as the tax has now officially come out, which is a really great news. So definitely stay tuned for that. Consider checking out other videos if you're brand new here. Always happy to have new people. Feel free to comment any questions, thoughts about honestly just really anything at all. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching. Stay safe, stay well, and hope to see you guys again next time. Thank you guys so much again.